Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the best case scenario. Never fails, bro.
Yeah, or
Never
you just
fails.
turn, go silent. I stay on silent.
Look, I've been on this. I've been looking at shit for 10 minutes on this phone, and ain't nothing happened on it. As soon as we hit go live,
Right. I mean,
my phone don't love that. My phone don't love that progression.
yeah. Well, best case scenario, your best case scenario live stream. We have a great show prepared for you guys today. We're going to be talking about Trump and Iran and the possibility of war.
And the possibility that the students still up to the same old conniving tricks in the Eastern Bloc. But first things first. Um, so recently, we've had a couple of incidences over in the Middle East. First being that Iran um, has literally decided to say that they're not worried. They're not worried about what we're going to do. They're not worried about going to war with us. As a matter of fact, their Revolutionary Guard is quite prepared for the smoke.
Yeah, and I think that what it all stems from, of course, is the attack on Saudi oil fields earlier this week. Saudi's major hit to Saudi's oil fields via drone strike. The Saudis say that they have reason to believe that it is the Iranians that perpetrated the attack.
Yes, they do.
So, the American press, at least, seems to agree. Um, soon after the attack, President Trump issued this tweet. He says, Saudi Arabia oil supply was attacked. There's reason to believe that we know the culprit and are locked and loaded depending on verification, but are waiting to hear from the kingdom as to who they believe was the cause of this attack and under what terms we should proceed.
Damn.
So immediately, Donald Trump begins to bow and scrape to the kingdom of Saudi Arabia.
And we already know Saudi Arabia is known for the fuckery. And I don't mean that to be any other way but real. I mean, if you're killing people under the guise of, getting a marriage license, you're not really tripping you're not really tripping. And I don't really think that that's the kind of people we need to be in subservience to. But that's just my opinion.
Well, I don't think he meant it to be subservient. It just sounded really.
It really does. But it
bad.
sounds like it.
Yeah.
It sounds like my man's just really ready to be like, look, you give us the word go, we gonna punch in. And at this point, there has been a significant movement of troops and artillery towards Saudi Arabia and other countries neighboring to kind of bolster the security there. And we always know that when America makes movements like that of a military kind, it sets off alarms across the globe. I don't think Iran has any reason to not feel like they need to prepare because this is kind of what happened when Kuwait was taken, by Iraq back in the day, and America slowly but surely crept their ass right up to Kuwait when it took down Iraq. So, looking at what it is, looking at what it was, look at what it could be, we're very close if nobody else is paying attention.
Well, I don't think we're going to go to war because
I don't think so.
Donald Trump's already come out and announced that he doesn't want war.
Well, Donald Trump can't afford a war in a re-election. We're right on re-election time. Can't afford a war right now.
Also, Donald Trump ran on anti-interventionist platform, and I think he intends to continue that platform.
I think he does
as he runs for re-election.
I think he does, but I think the Iranians may force his hand ahead of time.
I don't know why you think the Iranians want to force him into a war.
I don't think they want to force him into a war.
Because
I think they want to force him. I think they want to force his hand to see if he's all bluster because they've been sanctioning Iran quite a bit. They sanctioned the banks. They sanctioned the central bank. They sanctioned their national banks. You got to think that at some point Iran's like, all right, are you all talk with sanctions, or are you really with the get down? But I don't think at the same time Iran's actually out there trying to cause the problems. I don't know if they are.
That wouldn't benefit Iran.
It would. That's what I'm saying. I don't know if they're even behind the drone attacks, but I know that we've been battling with them, especially when it came to the British oil tankers a couple of months back. It's been ongoing. Well, and at some point, the rest of the world is probably going to ask America, "What are you going to do about it?"
Well, the Yemenis have taken responsibility. Have asserted that they are the ones that actually did the drone attacks themselves.
Yeah.
the Saudi Arabians went on to television and tried to build a case. They showed the bombs that they recovered. They showed, the shells, I should say, that they recovered. They said, hey, we have reason to believe that this is Iranian weaponry. Remember, Iran supplies weapons to the Yemenis in that war. And when asked by CNN, so do you believe it was Iran? The Saudi Arabian major did not want to say that it was actually Iran.
Well, because
because they don't know.
Want to say something that could start, World War III.
No, they want. See, the whole thing is, if they didn't want war with Iran, they would accept the word of the Yemenis saying they did it. They're already at war with Yemen.
Yeah.
They want war with them, but the thing is that they don't want to have to see. They don't want to be part of manufacturing this kind of thing.
Well, yeah, because at that point,
they want to make sure that they have proper United States backing before they go to war.
Yeah, because at this point, I mean, history is going to judge you based on whatever the next move is.
Well, they're not confident that the United States necessarily wants to go to war with Iran.
That's what I'm saying. History judges you. If you drag the U.S. kicking and screaming into a war with Iran, it's all going to come back.
Well, I don't think that you're going to drag them in. I mean, I think that Donald Trump and his way he is, he's not going to go to war unless he wants to.
Well, I don't think he wants to.
But there's a couple of things too, also because one of the major things when we're talking about the platform is, can Donald Trump decide to go to war? I mean, technically he can, but under the Constitution, only Congress can declare war.
True.
So, and that's one of the major things. Tulsi Gabbard wants to correct in her platform. She did introduce legislation called the No More Presidential Wars Act.
You can't just make it an executive decision.
And that's currently something that is in the House. And I think that if Donald Trump was to declare war in Iran, that would see something that would get passed very quickly in the House.
I think so. Well, I mean,
to make sure that you're getting all of those Republicans also on the record as either Mitch McConnell not voting on it,
or even your neoconservative
people voting,
your liberals.
Yeah, your neoliberals. But I haven't heard any liberals come out strongly in favor of war with Iran.
Well, I mean, Joe Biden was definitely in the same room with George W. Bush when, it was time to go to war against Iraq to begin with. So that was something. Or was it Tulsi that held his feet to the fire in that debate about that?
Well, I think it's something that comes up commonly.
It comes up
most commonly from Bernie Sanders, because Bernie Sanders was actually there as well and voted no.
Right. So, I mean, it's not far-fetched to imagine that some of the even running Democrats that we have right now could back a war with Iraq.
Oh, well, I'm sure that even though, warmongering goes across the aisle. It's not something that's either Republican or Democrat in nature, because again, like you said, a lot of Democrats voted for the war in Iraq. But I have not seen on this Democrats coming out in favor of a war with Iran.
Well, because a war with Iran right now doesn't strengthen the country in the way that previous wars have.
But I'll tell you who has come out in favor of war with Iran. Just about every single news media outlet, mainstream news media outlet you can think of. Because they love war. Because war is
called Joe on that. We called CNN, MSNBC. We watching y'all.
CNN, MSNBC, Fox
out here
News,
stoking the fires
ABC,
the fires of the flames of war, man.
ABC, all of them. They all have. That's one thing that they all agree on, because war is good press.
It's good press. If you can get journalists out in the fucking field, they start taking videos of people getting shot at.
The stories
it's always gonna.
And even if it's not like a video, the stories write themselves. Yeah. It's a war.
It goes without saying that and mainstream media is definitely behind the push for it.
Right, and as well, the military-industrial complex
is
a major advertiser and also owns
it's a hell of a recruitment tool as well.
Several media outlets.
Yeah, it's a major recruitment tool when you start talking about, hey.
Let me ask you a serious question.
Yes, sir.
Why are we allies with Saudi Arabia? And should we continue saying in the next administration, whether it be 4 years from now or next year, you know what I mean? Should we continue a allied relationship with Saudi Arabia?
With the current regime they have now, I don't understand why we're allies with them right now. Just because maybe it comes to the fact that Trump and the Prince of Saudi Arabia both just don't like the media. You know that. We know that. So maybe that's the common ground that binds them. And I mean, Saudi Arabia is they're good business partners. We do make a substantial amount of money from doing business with Saudi Arabia, but in honest opinion, with humanitarian rights being a focal point and us being the greatest nation in the world when it comes to that sort of thing, with what we have going on with the border crisis, if it's a year from now we have a new change of regime, I don't think we need to be allies with them until they clean up how they take care of things in their country.
Well, when you say clean up the way they take care of things in their country, it would assume that they don't like the way they take care of things in their country, or there's something that we like, or that we don't like the way they take care of things in their country.
Well, Abdul Khashoggi was not an exile from Saudi Arabia. He left because of the persecution that goes on there with people speaking freely against corrupt, or not even so much corrupt, but a sadistic totalitarian regime.
Mm-hmm.
And when he was bribed to come home to silence him. And I think that the world community has always condemned that. There was a large stream of journalists that were getting killed in European nations for quite a while. And the global community is condemning it, because now we're not just talking about killing people because they're quiet, we're just talking about killing people. And as America, if we condemn violations of human rights, then I think there needs to be, if not a separation of ties at this point, a distancing between, until they actively acknowledge the violation of human rights and move towards a more concise way of taking care of them. Mm-hmm. Maybe that comes down to breaking up a monarchy. I don't think that's going to happen. And with that being said, to answer the question you asked, I think we need to distance ourselves, if not just pull out of that alliance altogether. Mm-hmm. But that's a hard financial hit, and we know we live in a capitalistic country.
But I don't think that, because think about it. The thing that it's a financial hit, but it's not one that couldn't be replaced. For instance,
you're right.
The major money when we're talking about Saudi Arabia is the fact that since the 70s, Saudi Arabia has dealt in the U.S. dollar concerning oil trade, and that's been a great deal of prosperity for America. And it's also caused Americans, or the American leadership over the decades, to look the other way when it comes to human rights abuses, especially human rights abuses against women. Okay?
Yeah.
Now,
100%.
We can't go around the world taking out every single dictator or every single country every regime that we think is doing something wrong. We cannot do that. We've shown just through what we've done in Libya and tons of other places, Northern Triangle, South America, that we end up doing more harm than good to the people that actually live there.
True indeed.
But when you're talking about a nation like Saudi Arabia, which backs Al-Qaeda and other terrorist groups, it should be considered unacceptable. Because it spits directly in the face of the families and first responders of 9/11. And for some reason, when it comes to inside of our nation, you can't criticize or say anything about 9/11 that's bad, or people invoke 9/11 in order to, elicit certain feelings. But the government is letting you know how they feel about what happened during 9/11. They feel like it was just collateral damage. They feel like it's something that we can't let that mess up the money.
That part.
And so we remain allied to them as Saudi Arabia is currently not only just backing terrorist regimes, but also leading or perpetrating a genocide in Yemen currently. They have an occupation force, and the Yemenis are doing things in opposition to that occupying force, from the Saudis. And the Americans have backed them by selling them the weapons of the destruction of the Yemeni people. A Yemeni people is actually fighting also not only Saudi Arabia, but fighting against the same terrorist groups the United States fights against.
Exactly.
So why do we back Saudi Arabia rather than to back Yemen? It's all about the Benjamins.
The dollar bill speaks power in every fucking situation that we know about. We all know that. You know what I'm saying? Like, think about Donald Trump selling 2.2, what was it, million? It wasn't even billion. It was $2.2 million worth of weapons to Taiwan. Just to spit in the eye of China and say, we're going to continue to feed countries that are going to be a thorn in your side while we're a thorn in your side. It's definitely about, antagonization across the globe, but you're 100% right when you say it's all about the Benjamins. And that's why I say, at this point, if you're going to come into office in the next term, if it's not Trump again, you definitely have to reassess and reevaluate what we're doing with Saudi Arabia, because, to be a country that supports a country, or to be a country that supports a group like Al-Qaeda, you literally have to have no empathy for the country you're doing business with. It has to be simply business.
Right.
And business ties are meant to be broken whenever there's a problem that, goes beyond business, right? So we need, if you're the next president of the United States, you need to do the right thing for the people that you serve.
Well, I believe that certain progressive candidates have already spoken out against the alliance with Saudi Arabia.
I'm pretty sure they have.
And some have actually declared that they would be backing out of an alliance with Saudi Arabia if they were to become president.
And they should. I think, to be honest, I'll even go across party lines and saying that the next Republican, if he were to beat Donald Trump, should do the same thing, because at the end of the day, we're still just talking about the people of America.
I doubt they will. But the thing is, one thing, though, that I give Donald Trump for credit for is his candor. When you think about it, you had mentioned the first Iraqi war, Operation Desert Storm, and that was predicated. That war was predicated on lies. The lie that
there was weapons of mass destruction.
No, that was the second Iraqi war. The first Iraqi war was predicated on the lie that Iraq was actually invaded Kuwait. And was going in there and was tossing babies out of incubators.
Oh, yeah.
That was a lie.
But I love how they didn't show footage of that. They only showed footage of the burning oil wells. Remember that?
That was
a sensationalism for the media to be like, hey, look, we got to do something.
Well, that was actually something that was happening at the end of the war. So we were already there by the time that started popping off majorly. That's why you see a lot of people with Gulf War syndrome now, because of those oil rigs that they were tapping and fighting in the midst of the darkened skies of Kuwait. Then we have the second Iraq war, which we know, based on the lie of weapons of mass destruction, was perpetrated at that point. And these, that it was just so important to destroy, to kill Saddam Hussein, to change regimes. And now Iraq is a destabilized nation
in the worst way.
And so now, but we know that it's all about the money when we're talking about a war with Iran or serving Saudi Arabia as Saudi Arabia's proxy military. As something, as an agreement that we have with them. But Donald Trump actually came out and said it's because of the money. He didn't lie to the people. He said
why would he?
Well, because basically what had happened before was in these previous wars is you had to make the other guy look like they're doing the human rights abuse.
Yeah.
But you can't say that when you're talking about backing Saudi Arabia. You can't say because Iran's doing human rights abuses because
Saudi Arabia is too.
Exactly. So basically he had no choice, but he did the right thing, which is to tell the truth that, hey, he said Saudi Arabia is a good client of ours.
They pay us, their bills clear, their invoices are on time.
And we got to, so.
And they're not giving us no fee. They're not giving us no guff. Like Iran gave them guff. Well, Iran, And then not even so much that they gave him guff. It was just they ain't doing what Donald Trump wanted them to do.
Well, it's like this. You broke out of the Iran deal. You tightened sanctions or put brutal sanctions on the Iranian people, which the richest Iranians are not suffering from that. The only people that are suffering are the civilian, regular people. The regime is not suffering.
Oh, no. They got their paper.
Right. They're not suffering. The people that are suffering are regular people in Iran. You know, they said, you know what, we're going to continue our nuclear plan. If you try to fly a drone near us, we're going to shoot it down. If you know, and we're going to prepare for war in case you guys want to attack us.
Yeah.
Now, what we haven't heard since they've gotten out of the deal, what does America want from Iran? Well, why no one's going to the people saying, well, this is what we want Iran to do. We want Iran to stop making nuclear weapons. Well, you already had a deal where they were not making nuclear weapons.
Right. But in America's defense, I mean, going back to 2015, they were violating that. They were violating the agreement they were in to begin with. Iran has always been that, I don't know what you want to call it. I don't know if you call it a snake, but they've always been forthcoming yet sneaky. It's like
where do you get? Well, this is the only way we know if someone's keeping a deal or not is that we have other people.
Iran actually. I mean, now they're saying that they didn't follow the deal now because they're not part of the deal now. They don't care.
Well, yeah, of course you don't follow a deal that doesn't exist.
Well, no, they didn't follow. No, I'm talking about they admitted to not following the deal in 2015, and all they were doing was they were using faster. I think not gyroscopes. I think that's the wrong term. They were using faster centrifuges to enrich uranium quicker back in 2015.
But that's not the truth, because according to the
that is confirmed from the Iranian.
According to who told you that?
Well, I read that USA Today.
Listen. Before we broke the deal, our intelligence agencies, our own intelligence agencies, right? European intelligence agencies, the United Nations.
So they were following the deal.
Also, they were following the deal.
They said that they weren't. That's all I'm saying. What I'm saying is they had already, Iran has already admitted to being culpable to breaking the deal, even before we backed out of the deal.
Let's see if we can find that.
Iran is one of those. It's like at this point you're looking at Iran through a different, not through rose-colored lenses, like you know what they're capable of. While you're looking it up, my point is to say, and I bring all that to say, you can't be mad. Like Iran's been looking for a reason to pick a fight. I almost feel like because they've been doing things that antagonize the West and Western culture for about the last 4 or 5 years, just on the G itself.
This was in 2017.
My bad. Gave you the wrong year.
No. This is where Iran threatens to withdraw from nuclear deal if the U.S. does.
Oh, okay.
Because he did pull out of the deal in 2018, right?
Mm-hmm.
In early 2018, maybe about March or April, he backs out of the deal. Okay. Let's see. Iran begins uranium enrichment beyond limits set by 2015 nuclear deal. That's what's in 2019, though. So the earliest where I can get the keywords is from 2017. You know, and it just explains
what they were doing,
what Trump was doing by backing out of the deal, by threatening to back out of the deal. Because Trump, you know, he wanted to. I don't know. I think Trump was just trying.
I think Trump was testing his political power at that point, trying to see just how much the presidency gave him power to do.
I think that he was trying to destroy the legacy of Barack Obama. And
we all know that was
the greatest things in the most enduring things are going to be the Affordable Care Act, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the Iran nuclear deal. Yep. Those are going to be the two. Those were the two main lasting things, and Donald Trump has gone directly at those things. you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
In order to destroy
it's
the
a
legacy of Barack Obama and the things that he has done with actuality, that Iran nuclear deal was a nothing short of a miraculous
miracle that it
diplomacy
off,
move.
yeah.
And so,
I mean, if you ever wondered if anyone ever says that Barack Obama wasn't one of the best presidents or one of the greatest presidents, I'm not going to argue with that. But he did pull off some of the greatest administration moves that I've seen in maybe the last 15 to 20 years. So I will say that the man was good with getting policy done.
Right. So, but all in all, we're going to be keeping an eye on what's going on in Iran with the United States and the United States, and of course, what's going on in the Middle East.
Because it definitely correlates to how, I mean, we've seen with talks of recession going on, we've seen that a lot of what goes on outside of the China trade war, stocks are directly affected by what's going on in the Middle East. You can imagine that, I don't know if anybody's been to the gas pump lately, but it was a 30-cent change in gas prices within the last week. It is something that is definitely something to keep an eye on, and we will keep that. We'll do that for you. We'll keep tuned in on that and let you know what's going on.
All right. So moving right along, there has been some recent, some more tomfoolery from Donald Trump.
The kerfuffle that the man finds himself in now, we all remember 2016 was a year ripe for, how do you want to call it, rumor mongering that the Russians were involved in interfering with the election. So we're moving right into 2019 to 2020 for a new election, and it looks like Donald Trump is asking the Ukrainian government to give him a little insight into Joe Biden and his son Hunter Biden on what his business affairs were there in Ukraine.
Right.
Now, we had a congressional hearing not so long ago. I think me and Friend of the People both sat down and had a little bit of a debate about whether or not Donald Trump was involved with Russiagate, which was proven that he wasn't. But now we have Ukrainegate, and we have a timeline that shows that him and Mayor Giuliani, former Mayor Giuliani, who is now his head legal counsel, have repeatedly pressed the Ukrainian government to look into Joe Biden. And we now must ask ourselves, as voting members of the country, is this something we can overlook? Because in my opinion, it isn't.
Right. So it says basically Trump made a phone call to Ukraine foreign minister. That phone call was overheard by a whistleblower who remains unnamed because they are a whistleblower.
And he deserves to not be named. Thank you, sir, for doing your job.
And they wanted to ask, a phone call to investigate Joe Biden's, former Vice President Joe Biden's son, Hunter, who was doing something on behalf of the Ukrainian government for $50,000 a month. He was getting money.
He was getting cake. So but here's the thing, and Joe Biden has said this, at least at this point, that I have no idea what my son's business dealings were, which is very contrary to what Donald Trump has said about his son. And that's very alarming because most of the time, when you're not working with your father, or you're not working in government, you're working with another country, you're not going to tell him because you're not going to put him in a position that he has to ask questions for. Mm-hmm. So commendable to Hunter for keeping his father either A, protected, or B, blind on what he was doing. But more importantly, this doesn't seem to have anything to connect itself to Joe, which seems as if it's just more of the usual when it comes to Donald Trump dealing with members of the Eastern Bloc in Russia to get information.
Now, Joe is not a saint in this.
No.
Joe Biden actually called for the Ukraine to fire their top prosecutor when the natural gas company that Hunter was getting paid by in the Ukraine was being investigated. So it's not. I think that he said when he says that he doesn't know what Hunter was doing there, that would probably be a lie. And but it's no proof that what Hunter was doing was illegal. Now, when we're talking about national, what's the national story here? Ukraine Now, Donald Trump, Joe Biden has come out on the attack against Donald Trump. It says, Rear, this is a Fox News. I'm going to pull Fox News for this one. It says Biden goes on the attack over Ukraine controversy, pledges to beat Trump like a drum. Woo. So Joe Biden
Sleepy
on
Joe
the attack
wants the smoke. I need you to know it. He is not afraid of Donald Trump at all. He will beat the orange off the guy. That's what he's saying.
And and he'll beat him in a push-up contest.
Always.
That's what he says. Right?
That's what, you know, that turnover is all white. You know,
yeah, but he might lose count a couple times. But he'll we'll get Guinness out there, right?
You know.
Former Vice President Joe Biden went on the offense Saturday over President Trump's July phone call with President of Ukraine, in which Trump reportedly urged the leader to investigate Biden's son dealings in the country, with Biden backing calls for a White House investigation and for the White House to release the transcript of the call, which is what the White House should do.
Well, I mean, we can't. If there was a block put through in California who has had this law for as long as, you know, elections have been around, that you have to release your tax records, right? Federal judge blocked that for Donald Trump. You don't have to release his tax records to California. So you would almost smell a federal injunction coming down to block those transcripts if they're requested. It always makes me, this is the thing I always have not liked about this entire term or this entire presidential administration. You can't get nothing out of these guys. And maybe that's a good thing. Maybe presidents in the future should take note of that and notice that he knows how to use legalese to his benefit. You have not gotten the information. No one has gotten the information on Donald Trump that they wanted since he started being president. You can't get it. It doesn't matter which way you try to do it, whether it's legally, whether you try to do it through the media, whether you try to do it through grassroots movements. Donald Trump has still been Teflon Don when it comes to getting the information you want to put him in a noose. It's just short of criminal. That's what I will say. It's just short of criminal. And I can almost smell the injunction coming in to say that these phone calls, these recordings, these transcripts will only be released if they're redacted.
Right. The whistleblower complaint was filed earlier last month and detailed a troubling conversation Trump had with another world leader, including a promise Trump made during the phone call. As Trump and his allies have sought to characterize the anonymous member of the intelligence community who filed the complaint as a partisan operative, Democrats it seems like every time someone says something against Trump, they're a partisan operative. But for a Republican, he sure keeps a lot of Democrats around him.
And the worst part is he keeps a lot of Democrats that know what's going on when you don't want no one to know what's going on.
Right. Democrats in the House and Senate have demanded answers from Joseph Maguire, Trump's acting director of national intelligence. Because what happens is when someone files a complaint with the Department of National Intelligence, what the National Intelligence Director is supposed to do is supposed to work in conjunction with the Congressional Intelligence Committee to get to the bottom of those things. The Intelligence Committee is actually subpoenaed Joseph Maguire to come to Congress and to explain himself and to release the documentation of the whistleblowing. However,
we'll have feet dragged on as well, but go ahead.
However, he's not showing up. Number one, he's blocking every opportunity he's not coming to Congress, being back into Congress. And number two, he's not releasing the report that was made. So these things, this is what obstruction of justice.
This is what it looks like, people. Ladies and gentlemen, if you've ever wondered how you obstruct justice, that is how you obstruct justice.
Definitely. And if that phone call was in fact made, if in fact these things are true, Donald Trump has committed a felony.
Off top. And for all of the people that have heard us many a time talk about impeachment on this show, we didn't really have a case before. Now we do. just in case. And trust me, the Democratic Party is pushing hard on it now because they released them. They've been muddling with it. They've started talking about impeachment hearings, but now it's starting to get to a point where it's almost inevitable because there's procedures that are put in place. There's always been procedures, just like when you work at a 9-to-5 job. If you see that there's a safety issue and you call OSHA, you blow the whistle on it, they're indemnified to investigate that. And they're supposed to release those findings as soon as they conduct an internal investigation or whatever you want to call it. Whenever they do the investigation, they're supposed to tell somebody about it. Yeah. We aren't even getting the story about it, and the people in charge of getting the story out to the people that are asking for it. Mind you, the public isn't really screaming about this yet.
So, and then look at what's surrounding this right now. So you've got Joseph McGuire, and he won't go. But when this happened, when the complaint was filed, Joseph McGuire was not the director of national intelligence. It was Dan Coats. Dan Coats
stepped down recently.
He stepped down on July 28th when this started, when he realized what was about to happen, and he was going to have to come to Congress and testify and report this.
And I read his little resignation letter. His resignation letter said pretty much, "Hey, yo, you know what? It's been a great run, but I'm out. I can't be a part of this no more."
Right, because just because you're a Republican, these are real people of integrity too, and they really take pride in their job, and they're finding themselves having to either be the one that brings the president down, which they don't want to be, or having to compromise their own integrity. Yeah, and compromise their own integrity, and this is how you will go down in history.
Legacy is a lot to these people, you guys. Right? I don't think a lot of people take how deeply legacy means to some of these people that have been doing this for a career. But you don't want to be that guy. Fuckface Acosta, which y'all know how I feel about that, he backed out because he knew what was coming down the pipe. And
he was gonna get fired.
He's fired or not. Donald Trump was backing him. And he knew that the fire was too hot. He wasn't going to avoid it. He wasn't going to get away from it clean. Dan Coats knew the same thing.
Well, and not only that, the person that they were going to pick to replace him, which was Sue Gordon, is the deputy director. She resigned a week later no one wanted that smoke.
It comes down to a real simple basis of people in the intelligence community have been saying this about Donald Trump for about the last 2.5 years. He has very, very little respect for what they do and what they know. It's the intelligence community. They're not behind on what you're up to. But the only thing you can do is to keep it in utter chaos by keeping people shuffling in and out. And the way you do that is by you giving them the opportunity to either A, do the right thing, or B, get out of the way.
I'm going to make a bold prediction.
Yes, sir.
I'm going to make a bold prediction that Joseph McGuire will either be fired or will resign by the end of this month.
Get out of my head, because I was going to say the same thing. I hadn't got there yet. I was going to tell you. But the next time you hear about Joseph McGuire, it will be during his time to present his resignation letter.
Right.
Or he will be found to have done something that causes him to have to walk away from
right now, he's interim anyway. He's just acting.
He was just the guy in the midst. He don't even know anything about it.
He hasn't been named in an official capacity, but
that's what I'm saying. He don't know. He didn't know nothing about it coming in. Now he do.
Trust me, he knows plenty.
Oh, I just want to say now he do.
He wouldn't have been
acting. And that's why he don't want to come before the Congress, because the best thing for Congress to do is get the new guy. That's the best thing you can do if you're in Congress, is get the new guy. Because the new guy is going to have no way of knowing what all he needs to cover up. Mm-hmm. Not that quick. He might have got a briefing, but you don't know how far back it all goes. So he probably is like, look, the reason he's dragging his feet is because he's trying to stall out to get more time to learn what he really, really needs to know.
Yes.
And chances are, when he finally finds out what it is he really needs to know, he's going to cut that. Because I would. Any smart, respectable human being who hasn't taken a job for longer than 2 weeks and knows that it could be a suicide note if you keep it, is going to walk away from it if you ain't intending to commit suicide. So I agree with my man's predictions. If not in the next week, next 2 weeks, whenever the story starts really, really picking up some momentum, because again, it hasn't really been leaked out to the press. They've covered it, but they're being very mediocre in their coverage of it. It's very, very. It's not hush hush, but it's definitely not something that's burning down the door. That we're talking a lot more about storms and whatnot right now. but it's not kicking down your front door and it's not in your lap because they really don't want this to come up immediately after the congressional hearing, and even more importantly, while they're looking so hard into Brett Kavanaugh.
Okay. Well, Trump's position on this is that executive conversations with world leaders should be classified in order to protect his conversations, because, people shouldn't be able to hear everything that the president says to another world leader.
And to a certain degree,
do you agree with that?
To a certain degree, I do. But when it comes to breaches of the Constitution, I don't. Period. If you're talking about a conversation in front of, what I worry about when you start talking about you want privacy as a world leader is how clean your conversation is. And once you start talking behind closed doors, I have no idea whether you're making a deal that's on the up and up or whether you're being corrupt about it. Mm-hmm. And Donald Trump has a lot of reason to want to have people not listen to his conversations because a lot of them have a tinge of corruption to them. Mm-hmm. And he's probably the only president I've ever heard go as far as say he wants his conversation private. My response to that is why? What do you have to hide? If you're talking to another world leader, what do you have to hide? And the worst part is the Intelligence Committee knows what you're talking about. This is not, the CIA and the FBI are not stupid. They're not blind, and they got ears everywhere. You're never going to have a conversation if you're a world leader where somebody's not going to know what you're saying. So what you're telling us is you don't want anybody that's been hired to do the jobs to do their job. You want people literally, it's the president talking? All right, cut off all surveillance. We're not worried about it. That raises red flags for any normal human being, especially one that's supposed to be a public servant. So I definitely frown on that idea, and I hope that if they do pull that off, they just throw that in as a little bit more Parmesan cheese on top of the conspiracy, or should I say, obstruction pasta. So how do you feel about that? Do you think world leaders should be monitored when they're talking to one another?
I think that there should be protected conversation. But I think that there is definitely a limit to where you can go in terms of protected conversation with someone. I think if this person, if they believe that the protected portion of conversation, they went beyond what conversation should be protected. I believe that you do what you're supposed to do, which is you file a complaint, and then you give everyone an opportunity to investigate. I'm not saying that what was said needs to come out to the public.
No.
I'm saying that what needs to be said needs to be in the intelligence community. That Congress needs an opportunity to look at it. These people have the national clearance. They have
I was about to say it should be security
clearance
level.
They have classification level higher than most other members of Congress.
Right. If you're in a congressional oversight, you should have access to the conversations the presidents have.
Well, yeah, and this is this is the intelligence. You know what I mean? This is the intelligence.
This is exactly what you have.
This is what they're here for.
Spook agencies for. You have spook agencies to make sure that your enemies, whether they're abroad or whether they're domestic, are being watched and monitored. That's the whole reason. If you ever wondered why there is a central intelligence agency, it's to protect us from our enemies, both foreign and domestic.
Right, exactly.
And if you have a president who has now been accused not once but twice of working with other foreign agencies or other foreign governments to dig up information on people that are domestic allies. Then presidents being Republican or Democratic, that's an American ally you're investigating. That seems unconstitutional to me. And I get it. You got to get information on I'm a sports guy. You're a sports guy. I want to know film on the people I'm playing. I want to know if I'm going to play football with a high school across the state, how they play. I want to know. But that doesn't mean I'm finna go across to Mexico and bring somebody over here. Maybe I'm convoluting it, but you kind of got to understand what I'm saying, which is basically you can't use foreign eyes to monitor domestic interests.
Right.
You know what I mean? And that's something that I believe this president has either ignored or has blatantly gone against, which is why obstruction of justice, without a shadow of a doubt, should be the first thing that he gets hit with when he walks out of the office. And that should be exactly what we as an American public never allow again. Period.
All right. So we got 15 minutes left. So before we go, Dub TV, what's up, man? How you
How
doing?
you doing, man?
We're going to be talking about for the last 15 minutes here. We are going to be talking about election coverage. One of the most surprising things is Warren surging in the polls.
I'm shocked by this. I was reading something about it. I mean, like Biden is still about steady. Not Brock. I'm sorry. Bernie Sanders, my guy. Shout out 2020 Bernie, feel the burn.
Mhm.
He's dropped another proposal about dropping medical debt, about $81 billion of medical debt. I thought that might have got him a couple of points, but surprisingly, it's Elizabeth Warren who's taking a little bit of a head start this week. So, how do you feel about what do you like? I've been wanting to ask you because I wasn't there on Tuesday, or I wasn't there on Thursday for Meme Knowledge. Shout out Meme Knowledge. How do you feel like this is going? Do you feel like people are getting the right information? Do you feel like people are even tuned in? Do you feel like the public is tapped into this election like they should be?
Yeah, I think that it's going to be a certain group of the people that are, informed. There's a group of people that are uninformed, but we're all voters, and it matters what voters that are not necessarily informed think.
Yeah.
It matters. It matters what they're getting, and I think that sometimes we have to take seriously. One thing you can say about Warren's campaign is it's very well organized.
It is very. She has been running a tight ship to the point to where you don't catch much negative press about Elizabeth Warren, man. You just don't really catch it.
Well, I don't know about that.
I haven't really seen it though. Like I go, the slinging.
You don't catch negative. You don't catch her with her pants down. Negative.
That's what I kind of mean. Like she hasn't had the gaffes that a Joe Biden has had, or she doesn't have the previous loss that a Bernie Sanders has when people try to use that against him, or the age that comes. Like she keeps herself clean. Right. That's the word I want to use. She keeps herself very clean. You can knock some of the stuff she's talking about, but you can never knock what she's talking about the same way you can knock a Kamala Harris, where it's like, yo, you actually did do that. You know what I'm saying? Right. It's like she got her ducks in a row. Her people are on top of keeping things that could come up and bite her in the ass, like Trudeau blackface. They've kept it to a minimum so far. So I like her damage control and security team.
I personally don't see the allure of voting for someone like Elizabeth Warren. I can see where people that haven't necessarily don't have the time to kind of do any kind of serious political critique of Warren and her record could very easily say, well, this is Bernie Sanders, like a progressive kind of campaign, but she's more like it's a woman or someone you just.
That's
prefer.
What I'm thinking. But with her, it's like she's not.
I don't want to boil it down to that either. I think that's kind of irresponsible.
Yeah.
What I will say this is, again, when we're talking about polling, the type of people being polled, it's important to note that the type of people that are being polled oftentimes are Elizabeth Warren wheelhouse of voters.
Right.
Elizabeth Warren and Bernie Sanders, the base of their voter bases, of their support, come from two different places. Where you have with Bernie Sanders, you have more of a working class people, kind of a working class coalition, unionized workers and things of that nature. With Elizabeth Warren, most of her support comes from people that are of master's degree and white people.
She has that educated upper class base, and
right.
Bernie Sanders is definitely going to tap into that.
So there's not really a class. There's not really a clash there. Meaning it's not like Bernie Sanders is losing voters to Warren and vice versa. But what we do see is, that those type of people are the people that are more likely to be asked their opinion in a poll.
Right. So with de Blasio leaving, R.I.P. to your campaign, sir. I saw the obituary the New York Post did. They did you greasy, dog. That I heard. That was messed up. And if you guys have a chance to read it, go look on Twitter. It's there at New York Post, whatever the case may be. It's a really good, funny read. They torched his ass. But what I was going to say is with your Biden, with your De Blasio's dropping out, your Inslee's dropping out. Who's picking up these votes? Who do you think? Who do you think is the guy or a girl that's benefiting the most from?
These guys were polling very low, first of all.
Right.
But when you're talking about second choice candidates, Bernie Sanders dominates second choice.
Okay.
But when you're talking about second choice, you're going to want to look at front runners or people that are polling above maybe 5 or 6%, right?
I got you.
So when you talk about Joe Biden voters overwhelmingly picked Bernie as their second choice. Elizabeth Warren voters overwhelmingly picked Bernie as their second choice. Okay. Kamala Harris voters as well. So what you're seeing, what you will see and with the Bill De Blasio, definitely it's got to be Bernie because of the matching Democratic Socialist platform.
That makes sense.
As we begin to see some of these people drop out, which I think that when we're talking about going all the way to the convention, it's going to depend on who wins the primaries. But honestly, it's probably going to be about 3 people at the convention. I think it's going to be Warren, Biden, and Bernie.
Yeah.
Unless something happens, I think Biden's been sliding terribly in the polls. Who knows what's going to happen? If he maybe drops the ball on 2 or 3 primaries.
Depends on it could really come down to what this investigation comes out.
It could really
Trump could fuck him up.
I don't think that this has. I think that this does not have any bearing.
You don't think that
Joe
anything
Biden.
that has to do with his son gonna come back to bite him in the
I
ass?
don't, because I don't think that. I don't think that anything is going to come back on his son to that.
Okay, fair enough.
Because that would have already.
We're keeping our eye on
that.
That
Would have already happened, yeah. But I think that if you go into the convention and you got, maybe if you got Warren and Sanders, they're definitely going to not drop out to the convention.
No.
And then you're going to have maybe a Buttigieg or a Harris or both that are going all the way to the convention, not dropping out. They have the monetary support.
Yeah, they do.
Okay, to not go all the way to go all the way to the convention. No matter what happens in the primaries, they have the monetary support to continue.
Right.
I think that you'll see is maybe on the first go around, it's a kind of a split ballot, and the second time when those super delegates get in, that's where it's going to be dangerous for Bernie Sanders.
Yeah.
And that's when you're going to have to, when you will maybe see a surge in support for Elizabeth Warren from the super delegates.
Yeah. Because
she's already back smoozing and elbow to elbow with Hillary Clinton and the Democratic establishment. So that is, the main thing, the main danger. Now, is Elizabeth Warren as dangerous? Like, I wouldn't want to vote for Elizabeth Warren. Is she as dangerous as, say, a Biden or a Harris or a Buttigieg? No, I'd rather have her that way. I think she'd make a better nominee than any of them. But the choice is clear. When we're talking about the issues that are facing America today, there's really only one candidate that you're going to want to.
Right. And we know who that is. And I mean, one of the other things too is we got to look at beatability. We got to look at somebody that can actually take on Donald Trump and beat him.
Do you think that Elizabeth Warren can beat Donald Trump?
I'll be 100% honest with you, and no sexist fashion am I saying this. I just don't. I don't see her being compelling enough. I don't see her as being radical enough. I mean, at this point, if you're gonna beat Donald Trump, you gotta shock and awe America into it. You can't. We didn't beat him the last time because there was no shock and awe with Hillary Clinton. You know what you're getting with Hillary Clinton. She shot that shot a couple of times. It was each one of her campaigns were the same. It was cookie cutter as fuck. You gotta have something more compelling, and that's what people saw with Donald Trump. So I don't know if I'm denigrating Elizabeth Warren by saying this, but I just don't think she has that wow factor. I don't buy it.
I think it's about her political ambiguity. Where are you on Medicare for all, once and for all?
That's what I'm saying. Like, there's no wow factor. She hasn't said, I'm going to do this, and people are like, wow, that's what I'm talking about.
I've got a plan for that. You know, she's been throwing out her plan. She's very wonky. And I think that attracts, again, that base of college-educated people that are, you know, that are buying into her. I think that when you're talking about, so what's up? Do you take corporate PAC money or do you not?
Yeah.
You say her official stance right now is that right now she's not taking corporate money, but after the general election, if she were to win the nomination, she would begin to take corporate money, saying that we need all hands on deck when it comes to beating Donald Trump. So, but my question is, why not just take the money now?
Because at this point, I feel like it makes it seem suspect. It's like, all right, you're gonna win the nomination and then you can be bribed.
Well, the thing is, it's about the reason she's not taking the money now is because it's political expediency. Mm-hmm. She has to look good next to Bernie.
That's
Sanders.
what I'm saying. Because Bernie don't take PAC money, so it's like, okay, well, if you beat Bernie not taking PAC money, are you immediately gonna be? I mean, are you gonna hold yourself out to the biggest dollar? Like, I've never liked people that want to wait it out. You know what I mean? Like, be you from the gate. You know what I'm saying? Do what you're gonna do from the gate. Be who you're gonna be. It shouldn't be, well, we'll see if I'm gonna take the money.
Also, what doesn't make sense is that once you win the nomination, you're one of two people that are probably have the chance to win the presidency.
That's what I'm saying.
You have billions of dollars of free press. Why
you
start
don't need nothing else?
corporate money then?
It just seems like it seems like you're setting us up to be accepting of you taking the wrong person's money and saying, well, she's still here to beat Donald Trump, so it's okay. It's time to get out of bed with Big Pharma. It's time to get out of bed with,
with private insurance
companies,
military industrial complex,
the prison industrial complex.
And I don't think she's going to be necessarily in bed with.
But you know, PACs, you know how PACs are.
Of character.
I'm not saying that, but you know how PACs are. PACs can find ways to sneak money into other, like, you can sneak your interests in. We all know lobbying is a huge thing in the United. Like, we talked about this a lot. Lobbying is huge. So if you can lobby to get a couple of bits of dollars on a rider with a decent ass movement, you still got your money in there, and you can still come and hold that person accountable for taking that money. That's the kind of thing that we don't need in 2020, because that's the type of dirt that helps Donald Trump beat us.
Well, I also think that, with Warren, it's about negotiating points, right?
True.
And if you're already kind of waffling on stuff, you can already be moved a little bit on the needle. Mm-hmm. Well, then there's certain things you're just not going to be able to stand on and not get done.
Right. And
I don't believe that there's a lot of the things she's talking about she's going to be able to get done because she's very, very pragmatic, very quick to compromise, and she's showing a lack of the intense amount of political courage that it's going to take.
I like to call moral turpitude. She don't got that.
And it's going to take a lot. She has it to a certain extent, but not to the extent that it takes to take on 100-year-old institutions of capitalism that are going to be coming for your head. You're not going to be disparaging you every step of the way, discouraging every step of the way, offering you money every step of the way, coming at you in the press every step of the way, looking to damage your reputation every step of the way, looking to damage, to damage your campaign any way that it can.
Even hitting you through your own national committee, you got to be cognizant of all this.
Exactly, and do I believe she has the political courage to stand up to that? No.
Last thing I want to bring up before we part ways too. Speaking of Brett Kavanaugh, how do you feel? You feel like he should be going? He should be, get rid of him too. I don't give a fuck.
I mean, the honest thing is, like,
you open up a slot this late in the game.
But if you open up a slot right now, it's not going to matter. There's another Brett Kavanaugh. So it doesn't matter. If you're going to get rid of him, how about this? Keep that in your back pocket until you beat Trump. If you beat Trump, then we come after Kavanaugh. Right, because now we can replace that seat with someone that's going to be effectively upholding Roe versus Wade, which is going to be the main scrap in the Supreme Court of the scrap of the year.
True.
So, and that's what it's about. So basically, the rest of that stuff doesn't matter. You know what I mean?
Funny thing
Getting
is,
him out right now would not help. It would just there'd be another because the Democrats. It would be better if the Democrats actually vetted the people that are letting in, but the Republicans didn't vote on anybody during Obama's term, any judges that he wanted to put in. They get Trump in. Now Trump has appointed more judges than any other president has ever appointed. More judges, not Supreme Court judges. I'm talking about judges, period.
Yeah, no, on federal level.
On federal level. And these are lifetime appointees.
Yeah.
So the Trump impact on the judicial system is going to be something terrible. We do need.
We're going to feel that for a long time to come, y'all. So
absolutely.
If we can get rid of one, that's all I'm saying. But I will say, I bet you his favorite football player is Antonio Brown. I'm not going to delve into sports. All I'm going to say is, man, F that.
No, I'm gonna say this. We support you, Antonio.
I don't.
I don't know if you did it. I don't know
bro.
if you did it or not. You're probably gonna serve a suspension. But the people
he got released by the Patriots, so that's not even a suspension.
Yeah, no. They'll still slap a suspension on you.
I want them
so that any team that picks you up, they have
number 84. I hate your guts.
No, what I say is this. I don't give a damn because they're not attacking this man and saying on the rape, like, let's investigate and go after the rape charge. The NFL's doing that. That's why they're going to end up suspending him. But the media and people on the internet are talking about his attitude. Like, you're supposed to have some kind of, like, he has some kind of attitude requirement. Meanwhile, if I went into their home and tried to talk to them about their damn attitude on their job, they cuss me the fuck out.
Either way,
so don't hold Antonio Brown to a certain standard in his job that you don't hold to yourself at your own job. People tell me all the time about how they be cussing their boss out or how what they're not
$30 million back, you jackass.
Well, I think and then whatever. His money, I'm not in his pocket. I'm not in nothing. But I do know that just coming after that man, talking about his attitude, you have a right to say what you want to say, but check your own attitude before you come after.
Fair enough. I respect that from the front of the people. And that's our show for the day, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah.
As always, you already know, hit that notification bell, like, subscribe. All it does so you can get all of the hottest content from the Soapbox Heroes channel. Shout out to Tyrone. Shout out to my boy Prince Hayes. Best is yet to come as always.
Thanks for rocking with us.
We'll hit you with some more hot stuff. And as always, thank you for tuning in.